the one and only famous, infamous from The Exorcist onwards. I'm sure she's tired of hearing that. Linda Blair in 1980 in Savage Streets. One of the things I've noticed as I've gone more and more into these retro sort of movies from the 70s up through the 80s, I'd forgotten how incredibly violent, sexual, and intense they could be, which seems odd to say because you would think with all the stuff that goes on in current movies, and yet there's something about the way it's presented, maybe less special effects, fewer sort of, I don't know. I don't know why it is so uniquely different. Savage Streets, Linda Blair, she has a sister who is deaf. She's very protective of her sister, but it's very much they're a bunch of rowdy urban youth in 1980 listening to that music, all wearing the weird, wacky outfits that we loved back then, showing my age, and but having run-ins with people that are dealing drugs. We get the reference, it sounds like it's cocaine, they call it blow, definitely indicative of the era, but some really bad street thugs and a young man who's part of them but isn't really part of them, one of those, he wants to run with the tough crowd and they won't let him stop running with the tough crowd, but he's really bullied into things, horrible things, not just violence and drugs, but rape, but sexual sin, and before he realizes he's done wrong, which really makes him a difficult character to redeem, especially in the modern context, right? But yet we like seeing him reform back then. I imagine it was very much a different culture. Like he did this, but he's learned a lesson and he'll have to pay for it. And now we're more of a mind of we don't care how sorry he is. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying the cultural change, that it seemed odd that it was clear that we were supposed to feel bad for his position because people get put in that position, and yet we wouldn't put him in that position today. The movie made today, he would just be more bad, or he wouldn't cross that line before seeking a redemption arc for his character, as we would say. Linda Blair does a good job as this young woman she's not really a street punk. She's not a jock. She's not a cheerleader. She's just sort of an urban youth with a collection of friends. The deaf sister, of who she's so protective, ends up being raped in this horrific scene, being brutalized and essentially left for dead, though she lives. Her pregnant and high school friend, who again it's 1980, is Latino, is gonna get a good Catholic wedding and going to have a married family life going forward, but she ends up lifted over his head and thrown off the bridge by the bad guy. She dies while pregnant. So you have this sort of double homicide and a rape and an attempted homicide. And we don't get any details of criminal investigation as far as why they don't seem to be able to find anybody or why there's no suspects, or it really focuses on what we would call now a Frank Castle Punisher type story arc, where Linda Blair gets armed and goes out and wreaks a biblical vengeance on these bad guys, and does it in a way that is remarkably prescient for our time. I mean, like any episode of The Punisher might feature things just as brutal as what she does to these guys, and it's quite enjoyable if you're into those old revenge flicks. You want to see them suffer. But what really stood out was the realism. See, we live now in a culture where we're promoting sort of an artificial feminism, where ever since the theatrics of the first Matrix, we have these sort of impossible ninja moves and these super women that, even though they're 100 pounds and can maybe lift 100 pounds if they've been working out, just beat the tar out of these big muscular men because they're dumb. Well, if you could do that with brain power, I would buy that. But we've been taught to expect an unrealistic ability of the little person to defeat the big person. And this happens within genders. It isn't just the feminist thing. Little guys in a movie that know martial arts, ooh, and they devastate these big guys. Like, well, You might, if you're really talented, until he gets his hands on you and gets a hold of you and gets you down on the mat, as they would say in wrestling. It seems we've come to expect an unrealistic skill level. These earlier movies didn't do that, and even though it is sort of that genre, it almost fits well into our era. This horrible, horrific sex crime is committed. She goes out over after these bad guys and she does them over. I mean, she just punishes these guys, and it's beautiful. And some of it is completely God in the machine, Deus Ex Machina. You've got she suddenly knows how to use a crossbow. I rewinded it. I couldn't find anywhere where we learned about where she got a crossbow or how that was her hobby, but she has a crossbow. And, the bad guy lets himself get baited. Like, he doesn't see the big metal arrows hanging on her side. But anyway, but she has a weapon and she's good at using it, and she sets traps. And everything she does to brutalize these guys makes perfect sense. Even when she douses the guy in this flammable, but he gets his hands on her, like I said, and she's in trouble, right? Because he's bigger than her. When she can't outwit him, outmaneuver him, outweapon him, she's in trouble. But she's got the lighter, and we've seen the lighter in good theatrical setup. She had trouble lighting her cigarette earlier, so she's fighting with the lighter, and she gets it lit, and the guy bursts into flames, and she gets away. And again, all of it completely plausible that she could do that to those guys if she's got the weaponry, the smarts, and the gumption to go ahead and do it. And so it turned out to be, again, a better movie than I had expected it to be. I have that a lot lately. I've either, my standards are either I either like it a lot better than I thought I would, or I end up not finishing watching it because I'm getting kind of picky in my old age. But I expected a B movie with a lot of gratuitous sex, and there's a lot of nudity and so forth around the locker room, and there's profanity and profligate use of slurs that you wouldn't use in today's movies because they're too politically incorrect. Now you just drop 500 F-bombs instead of saying anything that insinuated sexuality, but whatever. So it is aged to its era of 1980, and yet it holds up very well. And I enjoyed it. And it's one of the few that I might watch again. Like every now and then you get bored, my generation, and you put on Commando because it's there, and you try again to count how many people he kills when he gets to the island. If you're going to be looking at your phone or working at your computer and just want something on you're half watching, having seen this movie and liked it, it's one that I might put on in the background again because it is that enjoyable when she gets her brutal and savage streets revenge. Ooh, that was good. So watch it, love it. Linda Blair, Savage Streets. Thanks for being here.